Welcome guys, it's that time where we go through and rate each and every one of the drivers, how they got on over the whole weekend at Imola. The race exactly wasn't a classic one, was it? But it did get really interesting in the end. And we'll go straight to the race winner, Max Verstappen, who I think over the whole weekend was probably one of his toughest weekends, but he did an absolutely incredible job, didn't he? The car really wasn't quite there, was it? He was struggling in all the free practice sessions. Even into the first lap of Q1, he wasn't really on it. And then he managed to get the setup right. It sort of worked and he did just enough, put it on pole position. And then he really controlled the race quite well, didn't he? At the end of the race, he was really struggling. He's saying his tyres were like ice, they had really gone off at the end, but to hold Norris back, I think he had enough in the bank, to be honest with you, because it was a difficult track to overtake. We'd seen the difference that Piastri and Sainz had in their cars, and Piastri really couldn't make the move or get close enough to Sainz, so I think we would have had the same scenario with Norris and Verstappen, but it was really nice to see that he just didn't run away with it. He was in for a real battle to win the race. He's also did a 24 hours sim race as well just before the race, and then continued it after the race, which is absolutely incredible, which he was leading P1, of course. It just shows the talent. This guy has just been absolutely unbelievable. He's taken the bar to a whole new level to do 2 races in one weekend, just to put it on when it matters, like lap 63, 62, 60, 60, 59, 60, where it was really close, and you know, Norris was not far, about half a second, quarter of a second of getting into the DRS zone. He just bridged that gap a bit and just did enough to, you know, prevent the DRS and get that extra pressure. So he could just manage his tyres a little bit more. Just, you know, it's the small details that he pulls off. It's absolutely incredible. A 10 out of 10 for me. Absolutely brilliant from Max Verstappen. And then comes Lando Norris. His qualifying, he lined up 3rd place, obviously moved up 2nd after his teammate got the penalty. I think he would have been a little bit disappointed with that. I think that they had just enough to potentially nick pole. Verstappen got the toe down the straight, which actually helped him, didn't he, to take that. And Norris lined up P3, 2nd in the race, but he did, in the early parts of the race, he really struggled, didn't he? He had about a 6 or 7 second gap to Max Verstappen, which made it a bit more easier for Max. But Lando Norris, when it mattered, he was absolutely flying again, wasn't he? He was just pumping in fastest laps, absolutely on a charge right at the end. The last 10-15 laps were absolutely brilliant from him. Just not enough to get into that DRS and put that extra bit of pressure on Max Verstappen for his 2nd race win. But it was overall a really good performance from Lando Norris. A 9 out of 10 for me, because I think it's close enough to a 10, to be honest. It was absolutely fantastic. It's just, what more could he have done? Probably not. I think it should be a 10 out of 10, because I'm not sure what more he could have done there, really, apart from, yeah, make the move on Max, but that's no easy feat. And like I said, even if he did get in the DRS, it was so difficult to overtake around Imola. The DRS was shortened and it didn't really help at all, the racing, did it? So a 10 out of 10 for Lando Norris. A really good weekend for him. 3rd place, Charles Leclerc. And this is a hard one, because I think my expectations were so high of Ferrari this weekend that almost to be 3rd, and he wasn't a million miles away off Lando Norris in the end, was he? Just 7 seconds. So the closest top 3 finish we've probably seen all year, just 8 seconds between the 3 of them. Charles Leclerc was probably the best he could do. Again, a really good overall solid weekend. 3rd, the upgrades didn't quite give enough to the performance, did it, to that car that we thought it would, but absolutely Charles Leclerc did absolutely just make the most of it. A 3rd place start, a 3rd place finish. I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for him, because I think that was a really solid weekend. And then 4th place finisher, Oscar Piastri. And I think he'd be a bit gutted, because but for that 3 place grid place penalty, he definitely would have been on the podium in my view. And he would have been in for a chance to a good start again, to try and, you know, pass Max and be the one that put the pressure on. Last weekend he had a brilliant weekend, and it's followed through again. His qualifying, he out-qualified Lando Norris. in the race. He just got stuck behind Carlos Sainz a bit too long, didn't he? And like I said, that short DRS just didn't help the racing at all. And after that, you managed to pass Sainz. I think he lost too much time trying to do that, and then just didn't have enough in him to, or in the car, to, or the tyres left after that to try and chase down Charles Leclerc for that podium position. But a really good, solid weekend for Oscar Piastri, I think. He's, you know, thereabouts now with Lando Norris. He's getting closer in the racing, which is the big struggle for him last season. He's turning that around. I think he can be very happy with his weekend. I've gone for a 9 out of 10 because I think that was, probably the best he could have done from the circumstances. And he had a fantastic qualifying session. Hats off to him. Absolutely well done from him. And then 5th place finisher, Carlos Sainz. He started in 4th place, lost a place to Oscar Piastri. That car, he struggled, didn't he, this weekend? Even in comparison to Charles Leclerc, he wasn't really quite on that. He dropped his edge a little bit. He was more vocal about how poor the car was than Charles Leclerc. He's the man leaving, so he can almost say what he wants now, can't he? So I think he was just being brutally honest. The upgrades weren't the big step he'd hoped for. McLaren are now ahead of them, so it's a decent finish. He beats one Red Bull, and probably another one where he's probably got the best out of that car as it stands in his hands. He'll be disappointed though, because Charles Leclerc's on the podium and he's in 5th place, so potentially there was a little bit more in there, but just not quite enough. He did well to hold off Piastri in the first stint. Thereafter, he just didn't have enough, but was comfortable in that 5th place. A 7 out of 10 for me for Carlos Sainz. Then comes Lewis Hamilton, and an 8th place start, 6th place finish. He's moved forward in the race. The Mercedes came with upgrades, didn't really set anything alight. They're about 0.4 to half a second off, which actually, if you look at the start of the season, they were nearly a second, weren't they? So they've made up half a second. But it's still, they are the 4th best team now, or, you know, fighting Aston Martin in certain races. And they're not close enough to be in that battle, are they, with Ferrari or McLaren yet? They are a fair way off McLaren. I think that'll be the bit that hurts, because they supply McLaren the engines. So it's all down to the rest of the aero package, where they're struggling. And yeah, again, McLaren outshining them with upgrades. They are happy with the direction that they're going in now, but it's a long way off where they want to be. Lewis Hamilton, though, he can be happy with his day's work. He beat his teammate purely because George Russell pitted. He was on a short stop, didn't he, and was on older tyres. Toto saying at the end of the race there that I think Lewis Hamilton would have had George Russell anyway, so the reason to pit was they had concerns of their tyre making it to the end, so they made the right choice there. Russell did enough in his position. Hamilton can be happy with his day's work, a P6, solid race. I've gone for a 7 out of 10 for him for this weekend. And then followed up behind him, George Russell, 7th. He started in 6th, lost that place obviously because of the pit stop. Comfortably kept off Oscar Piastri. Again, he'll be scratching his head a little bit here, isn't he? Not overall impressed with his weekend. Dropped a couple of places from where he started, and it's just, the Mercedes is in a horrible place at the moment. They've got some work to do to try and get in the battles with Ferrari at least. 6 out of 10 for me for George Russell for this weekend. 8th place man, Sergio Perez, and he has had a horrible weekend overall, hasn't he? Didn't make it into Q3 in qualifying, started 11th place. He started on the hard tyres. Did well actually off the start, made up a place on them hard tyres, and then made a big mistake, cost him a lot of time, and then he was just not really ever on it at any point again, isn't it? So he really needs to just pick up his momentum, and like we said last year, we can't afford to have these really poor races here from now on, because it'll be a repeat of what we saw last time after Miami, where he went downhill, and he can't afford now, with this contract coming up at the end of the season, to go on a run of 3 or 4 bad races, because it then puts that into doubt again. There's a lot of drivers hungry for that seat. Carlos Sainz, Ocon, Gasly, you name it, anyone will be up for that seat. So he's got a lot of pressure on him this season. He needs to just get out of this rut a little bit, but he'll be glad to see the back of this weekend. I've gone for a 4 out of 10 for Sergio Perez for this weekend. 9th place for Lance Stroll, and actually a better weekend. Qualifying wasn't great, P13. But he's beaten his teammate in qualifying again and in the race, so you can be really happy with that. He's made up 4 places from his starting position, and I think overall this is a good weekend for Lance Stroll. We don't say that too often. An 8 out of 10 for me for him. Absolutely brilliant job, I think. He can be very happy with his weekend's work this time out. And the final points finisher, Yuki Tsunoda. Again, another really good weekend from him again, isn't it? After a really good race in Miami, he's bought it again here. Beats his teammate in qualifying and the race. Really good qualifying performance from him, wasn't it? And to pick up some points. I think he'll be a little bit disappointed because Imola is a track that's difficult to overtake at, and he lost 3 places from where he started, which is a fantastic 7th. But he'll be hoping the car can just keep doing these small incremental increases and just get slightly better in race trim. But he's been absolutely phenomenal. A fantastic time for Yuki Tsunoda, and he's another man that really should be in the shout for that move upgrade into that Sergio Perez for me, because he's done an absolutely tremendous job. All his teammates, he's just sort of raised his game enough, hasn't he, and actually put some stellar performances in recently, and more mature, hasn't he, which is the big difference here from Yuki. Absolutely fantastic character. Love to see him do well. I've gone for an 8 out of 10 because I think it's a fantastic job from him. And then up, it's the star qualifying man, Nico Hülkenberg. The absolutely tremendous job from him in that Haas, isn't it? And if he can do something like that for Monaco, it would be quids in, wouldn't he? So yeah, another one with a really good qualifying session. Started in 10th, but the early stop for the hards didn't help him at all, and then the tyre deg was high, wasn't it? And it wasn't really, you stopped way too early for a 1 stop, and it wasn't enough in the tyre difference to go for a 2 stop. Surprised they didn't try it at the end, but I think he probably might have lost more places, but he was struggling to hold on for some points, and a P11 finish would all come down to, I think, poor strategy really, but a 7 out of 10 for me because he did a really good job. And following in behind him, Kevin Magnussen, who after meeting the stewards again this weekend, but for reasons that are not his wrongdoing, he got held up in qualifying, which put him way down. He then had a really good race, didn't he? From 18th place down up to 12th place finish, 6 places he made up. So really good race, and then just 1 second behind Nico Hülkenberg, and I think that's the impressive part considering they started 8 or 9 places apart. So to do that without losing so much time and ending so close to his teammate shows what a really good race he had. Shame it didn't produce any points though, but overall he can be much happier this weekend. I've gone for an 8 out of 10 for Kevin Magnussen. And 13th place, Daniel Ricciardo, who started in 9th, finished 13th, way down, dropped places, just didn't have enough, that car, did it, to hold on in race conditions. A bit like Yuki, went backwards, so it was a bit of a struggle in the race, but really good to see them back up the front when it matters in qualifying. Daniel Ricciardo, he needs some more performance, doesn't he, because he's getting beat by his teammate. So overall I think he'll be a bit disappointed with that, and yeah, hopefully it'll be better for him in Monaco, where he's had some really good times, hasn't he? But I've gone for a 6 out of 10 for me for this weekend for Daniel Ricciardo. And then 14th place finish for Ocon. So it started 12th, finished 14th, down 2 places from his start place, close to Bottas, and then made the moves, but yeah, just not enough in this Alpine, is there, at the moment? They are better from where they've started the season, but they still need some big upgrades to come. I've gone for a 4 out of 10 for me for this weekend for Ocon. And then comes Zhou Guanyu, who actually, it's hard to judge, isn't it, when they've not done in any fights really for this weekend. But Joe, you can only line him up against his teammate, and he's out-qualified him and he's beaten him in the race. Finished his 15th place. A decent weekend from him. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 because he's beaten his teammate in both qualifying and the race, and I think that's all you can do when you're judging these guys that are, you know, fighting at the back. So a pretty solid weekend from him. Nothing spectacular or magnificent, but good that he's getting on top of it and beating his teammate quite comfortably now. And then Pierre Gasly started in 15th place, finished in 16th, so again down a couple of places. He was running 17th, got helped out by the poor Alonso performance and Albon to like make up a place and finish just one down from where he started. Not a good weekend from him. He's beaten by his teammate again. A 5 out of 10 for me for him. 17th place, Logan Sargent. I'll be glad he didn't finish last. He beaten Bottas, but nothing special. Started last. A 5 out of 10. Again, he needs some spark, doesn't he? Because in the hands of Alex, that car is significantly better. I mean, Albon qualified in 14th. Yes, he DNF'd in the race, but not all his fault there. 18th place, Valtteri Bottas. He's, again, 16th place start from him. Made up 3 places at the start, up to P13, and then pitted so early, and then he was a sitting duck after that. And again, I do question that strategy call from Sauber to go so early when you're going to do a one stop, because you know at the end anybody that runs that bit longer is going to be really all over you, and it's a long way to go to be, you know, keeping someone back. It didn't work out for him this weekend. Horrible in the end. A 4 out of 10. And then the worst performance of the season for me is Fernando Alonso. Horrible qualifying session. He had a pit lane start. And then in the race, it just was absolutely nowhere. He had a fire on his brakes, didn't he? And then, slow. He was so bad that he went for the fastest lap at the end on the soft tyres. And missed out on that. It just topped off the whole weekend for him. One to absolutely forget. And it's rare you give a rating like this for Fernando, but a 3 out of 10. It was just poor all round, and it started from that crash in FP3, didn't it? And then we've got the sole DNF of Alex Albon. He started on lap 10, pitted on lap 10, and then he had an issue with really slow coming round, didn't he? Had to do a really slow lap. Was a lap down from there on because of a wheel not going on. Got a 10-second penalty for it. Finished a couple of lap down, and then they just DNF'd that car in the end. They ran it. I think they were just doing some tests on that car. So overall, a disappointing performance from him. No rating because he just didn't finish. But another weekend where it was decent qualifying performance, but the race just didn't bear any fruit for him. And let's go through and do the predictions review, isn't it? And I had for pole position Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen second, and Lando Norris third, and I was wrong on all counts, wasn't I? Max Verstappen did enough again. Absolutely brilliant job from him, but it was close, wasn't it? And it did look like Piastri or Norris should have nicked that. It lined up second place for Norris in qualifying, and it was Charles Leclerc in third place, who I thought would be on pole. Ferrari's upgrades just not quite enough. For the win, I had Charles Leclerc, Lando Norris in second, and Max third. Max did a brilliant job holding Lando Norris back. He got the win. Lando Norris in second, I got that right, and obviously Max third wrong. It was Charles Leclerc. So I thought it would be a good weekend for Ferrari. It just wasn't quite, was it? The status quo remained the same. They are the third fastest team at the moment, just behind McLaren. The upgrades didn't bring enough. There was a lot of hype around it. I think that's pure media and fan hype rather than the reality of things. I didn't get that right either. And a bad weekend for Williams, and it pretty much wasn't it? Alex Albon a DNF, and Logan Sargent way down. Nothing special coming from him either. So predictions reviews was a bit of a mix. I just expected more from that Ferrari than actually came out, but overall a really good weekend of racing. The qualifying was so close and tight that it's a shame that we're not seeing that translate into the races just yet, are you? But it looks like we're simmering and we're getting to that point now, because it's getting close at the top and it's getting exciting towards the end of the season, which is absolutely brilliant to see. And next we're off to Monaco. Not long to wait. Back-to-back race weekends. The race starting Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So absolutely cannot wait for that. Watch out for the Monaco preview coming shortly. But thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment as always. See you next time.